Have you ever worked harder than everyone around you, but still felt like you were losing in life? You wake up early, you work all day, you come home exhausted, and yet somehow, other people keep moving ahead while you stay stuck in the same place. If that feeling hurts, then this story is for you. Because once there was a man who spent 12 years working harder than everyone he knew, until one old farmer showed him the mistake, quietly destroying his entire life. And what happened next completely changed the way he worked forever. Stay with me until the end, because this story might change how you see hard work itself, and if you truly want to change your future, subscribe to the channel, because sometimes one story can wake up a person who has been mentally asleep for years. In a small farming town surrounded by dry fields and dusty roads, there lived a 32-year-old man named Thomas. Thomas was known as the hardest worker in town. Every morning before sunrise, while the rest of the village still slept, Thomas was already outside working, digging, carrying, sweating, working endlessly under the burning sun. People respected him, but secretly, Thomas hated his life, because despite all his effort, he was still poor. His clothes were old, his house was falling apart, and every year felt exactly the same. Meanwhile, other farmers around him slowly became successful. They bought better equipment, expanded their farms, built larger homes. Some even stopped working long hours completely. That confused Thomas deeply. How are they succeeding while I work harder than all of them? The question slowly became frustration, then bitterness, then anger. One afternoon under the scorching summer heat, Thomas watched another farmer named Victor drive past him on a new tractor. Victor waved politely, but Thomas looked away, because deep down, he felt humiliated. Victor used to work beside him years earlier. Now Victor owned one of the biggest farms in the area. That night, Thomas sat alone eating dinner in silence while staring at the bills piled across the table. Something inside him finally broke. He slammed his fist down and shouted, "I work harder than everyone!" The empty room stayed silent, and for the first time, Thomas realized something painful. Hard work was no longer inspiring him. It was exhausting him. The next morning, Thomas woke up even earlier than usual, determined to work harder, again, because he believed effort alone would eventually save him. But around midday, while working in one of the far fields, Thomas suddenly felt dizzy. His vision blurred, his knees weakened, and moments later, he collapsed into the dirt. When Thomas opened his eyes again, he was lying beneath a tree. An old man sat nearby, calmly drinking water. The old man looked around, 70 years old, wrinkled face, simple clothes, peaceful eyes. Thomas slowly sat up. "What happened?" The old man handed him water. "You pushed your body too far." Thomas looked embarrassed. "I'm fine." The old man smiled softly. "No, you're tired." Thomas immediately responded, "Of course I'm tired. I work harder than everyone." The old man stayed quiet for a few seconds, then asked one simple question. "And where has all that hard work taken you?" Thomas froze, because he had no answer. The old man pointed toward the field. "I've watched you for years." Thomas looked confused. "You know me?" The old man nodded. "You work harder than almost anyone in this town." Thomas sighed heavily. "Then why is my life still the same?" The old man looked toward the horizon before quietly saying, "Because effort without direction becomes self-destruction." Thomas frowned. He didn't understand. So the old man stood up slowly and pointed toward two nearby farmers. One worked alone, carrying heavy sacks on his back repeatedly under the sun. The other sat beneath shade while a machine harvested his crops. "Which one is lazy?" the old man asked. Thomas immediately pointed at the man sitting under the tree. "The second one." The old man smiled. "Look closer." Thomas watched carefully. Within minutes, the machine harvested more crops than the first farmer could carry in hours. Then the old man spoke words Thomas would never forget. "The goal is not to suffer more. The goal is to build better." That sentence hit Thomas harder than anything he had heard in years, because his entire life, he believed suffering itself guaranteed success. The old man continued, "You think being exhausted makes you noble, but exhaustion is not achievement." Thomas stayed silent. The old man picked up a dull, rusty shovel lying nearby. Then he handed Thomas a sharp new shovel from his cart. "Dig." Thomas started digging with the sharp shovel. The soil moved effortlessly, fast, smooth, easy. Then the old man said quietly, "Both shovels work hard, but only one works intelligently." Thomas suddenly understood. His entire life, he focused only on effort. Never strategy, never learning, never improving systems, just suffering endlessly. That realization shook him deeply. That evening, Thomas walked home differently. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about working harder. He was thinking about working smarter. That night, he couldn't sleep. The old man's words replayed endlessly in his mind. The goal is not to suffer more. The goal is to build better. The next morning, something changed. Instead of immediately rushing into endless labor, Thomas spent time planning, learning, observing. At first, it felt uncomfortable because slowing down made him feel guilty, but slowly, he started noticing things. He wasted hours every day doing tasks inefficiently. He repeated the same mistakes constantly. He never invested in tools, never learned modern methods, never improved his systems, because deep down, Thomas believed struggling made him honorable. Weeks passed. Thomas started changing small things. He organized his schedule, studied better farming techniques at night, saved money for useful equipment instead of random expenses. He even rested properly for the first time in years, and something surprising happened. His results improved, not because he worked longer, because he finally worked with purpose. Months later, Thomas bought his first small machine. Some villagers mocked him. "You're getting lazy." Thomas simply smiled, because for the first time, his body no longer felt broken every night. 1 year later, Thomas doubled his harvest. 2 years later, he owned more land than ever before. And one evening, while walking through his fields during sunset, Thomas saw a young farmer working himself to exhaustion exactly the way he once had. Thomas slowly walked over and handed him water. The young man sighed tiredly. "I just need to work harder." Thomas looked at him quietly, then softly said, "No, you need to work wiser." The young man looked confused, and suddenly Thomas smiled, because he realized those were the exact words that changed his own life. Years later, people called Thomas successful, but they never understood the real reason. His life changed the moment he stopped believing pain alone creates success. Because hard work is powerful, but hard work without direction can quietly destroy your entire life. So if you've been exhausting yourself every day, but your life still isn't moving forward, maybe the answer is not more effort. Maybe the answer is a better direction. And if this story spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and comment, "Work wiser." Because sometimes one sentence can completely change a person's future.